This morning, we're joined by a former presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party. He is a lawyer and also has not shied from giving his thoughts on public affairs. He is Prince Adewale Adebayo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Mark. Good to see you, and God bless Nigeria.
Amen. That's the prayer that we can pray. But every day when we see incidences like this, though, you know, we have questions to ask as to if we want God to bless us, are we really taking the steps that, you know, would make God bless us?
Yes, it's both corporately and individually. That's why we know that things like this will happen. That's why Thomas Hobbes says, if we don't have a government, life will be short, nasty, and brutish. And so where's the failure? If you are investigating something, you start is where, you know, remember that phrase we used to use in the military those days. They would say, find the immediate and remote cause of this thing. First, my heart goes to the people of Niger State, and my heart goes to the government and the leaders of the community there. And Kacha is a very important place for us because for many years, almost every election, the SDP will always win that local government, no matter who is the winner in the state government. So I sympathize with the people there. But the major problem is a governmental failure because there's virtually no road there. And I travel that road. Sometimes I come from Oyo State, pass through Niger State, Kwara, Niger, to come to Abuja or go to Kebbi during political consultation. There is no road in many parts. And that, especially towards Bida, around Bida and other area, and to have 3 levels of government, federal, the state, and the local. So these accidents will happen from time to time. It's a miracle that they don't happen more often, because when you go there, you see tankers in all kinds of states. So that road is not vehicle worthy. Secondly, our people are in such a state of mind that it is not that normal. I don't know if you don't understand the chemistry of petroleum, to know that it's highly flammable, and however careful you think you are in scooping it in that volatile state, the fumes have permeated way beyond where you think it is, and any little thing to ignite it, repeatedly this happens all the time. And just like Ayo said earlier, there's no connection between the people and the government. And if we go into the analysis of that, 60% of the error is with the government, and the rest is with the common people. But I think that steps that we can take to not make us to come periodically to offer eulogies or lamentations on TV is, one, all the tankers in Nigeria should be tagged. It is not too difficult. In Argentina, they tag all cows. In many countries, they tag all goats. So the tanker is big enough. More so because of this issue of who is stealing our fuel, where are the tankers going. I used to run, I still have it, but I don't pay more attention to it anymore, a logistics company. And almost all our vehicles were tagged. We will know where they were, what speed they travel, and all of that. So it is not too hard for the government to tag all tankers. So they will know where they are at any point in time. And if anything happens, you only need to press one button. And every local government has a transport office. Every police division has a duty transport officer. So everybody is sleeping on duty. So when this incident happens, or where you know it happens frequently, is to be vigilant. And once it happens, you cordon off the place. And then community leaders in all these areas, I believe that the community leaders, especially traditional rulers, local government chairmen, councillors, should, in the local language, warn our people about the hazards of going near any fallen tanker or any vehicle carrying any effluent or anything like that. Then there should be a kind of local way of enforcing it. vigilantes to see that you don't go there. I think we can do that. This is also a failure of local government administration. That is why I have never supported the idea, and I will not support the idea of a Federal Road Safety Commission. It was good for military when there was a military government. Now, road safety should be local. It's one of the things I will do if God makes me president and Nigerian people make me president. I will abolish the road safety and put road safety in local hands. Because for something to happen in near Bida or Pategi, and you need the person who is going to explain to us is in Abuja. It doesn't work so well like that. So we need to get our local governments to work. So that when these hazards happen, within 5 minutes or 3 minutes, somebody is there to cordon off. When we give these kind of suggestions, people say, oh, it looks like everything is theoretically easy. But these things happen in most countries. They will know where the tankers are. If there's a failure, they will know how to deal with it. And the response time should be very short. And at the community level, I believe that if you talk to the district heads, if you talk to many of the people leading the people, if they keep talking to them every day and make it a taboo in their community that you go near a tanker that has fallen or something dangerous like that, you will be ostracized, you will be punished. Whether you scoop successfully or not, you will be punished. And I can tell you, you wonder, these people, have they lost their mind? They haven't. The reason why it looks like they do it all the time is that it is not every time that they scoop that they die. So there are occasions whether the ambient temperature is low, below the level where it can ignite, where it happened, whether there are not many enough to create static that will make the fire to come. So when they successfully scoop and they get away with it, you don't hear of it. If not because of the explosion now, the tanker will have fallen, people will have scooped fuel from it. You will just see them selling the fuel by the roadside. A day later, you don't know what happened. So we need to take governance to the people. That is why there is, for example, your correspondent in that area will soon bring a report. But the person they need to speak to is the councillor in charge of that ward. Because if this was somewhere else, the person who will be speaking authoritatively on it will be the councillor in charge of that ward, who knows everybody there, virtually everybody, who can say the people who came to school are from this family and things like that. So we need to bring our government closer to the people. And I can tell you, as far-reaching as Channels TV is, you'll be surprised that many of the people involved in this thing may not even have electricity to tune in, may not understand the level of diction and vocabulary that we're using here. So the messaging has to go down. I've seen Nigerian National Orientation Agency doing some campaign around this thing, but I think that if they want to do it well, they need that to be done at the local level. And there's a way you can do it systematically, because governance is systematic. People will say, oh, the country is wide, you can't cover everywhere. There are flashpoints. Shagamu, Bida Road, different places that you will see that these are the bottlenecks. Right from after Ibadan, it's saying Bomosho, you will see all these places where these tankers gather together, you know where they pass. So you create emergency response units along that area. And even nowadays, it should be a requirement if you are operating a tanker, there should be a canister given to you that once the tanker falls, you can immediately apply this canister and
perhaps.
Yes, you do a lot you can do there now to make the temperature to come down and to see that it's not that attractive to fire or anything like that. There are many efforts you can make, and I think that road transport owners, NUPENG, it is not only when they have quarrel with Dangote that they should organize themselves. They should come together to see that they don't become a nuisance to the public. The same thing, if you permit me, I will say, with respect to cement trucks crushing people anyhow. And that's another silent killer that happens almost every week. And the company that has most of these tankers, there are not more than 3 or 4 companies that have most of these trucks, and they are well-organized companies quoted on the stock exchange. So it's not too hard to give them a corporate safety standard that will lower these incidences. Those are the areas in which our Minister of Transportation can work with his colleagues. But bottom line, we need to have roads in this country.
I've chosen not to interrupt you because issues of safety are really becoming very bothersome. But you did say something about flashpoints, and this week Abuja became a flashpoint, even though it was for another reason entirely. There was a protest that was planned in the Federal Capital Territory for Nnamdi Kanu, and Omoyele Sowore was leading that protest under the Take It Back movement. We saw them, being dispersed in the Federal Capital Territory. Well, they still continued in other parts. Police said we had, court order injunction for them not to, pass certain areas and to avoid Aso Villa. Well, that has since ended. People were arrested, including Nnamdi Kanu's brother and his lawyer. And I think it was the special advisor to the president, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, who released a statement talking about that, the fact that Mr. Aloy Ejimako, who is Mr. Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer, joined the protest. He believes that that's a matter of sub judice and has called attention of the legal authorities, whom he believes should consider appropriate sanctions for the unethical conduct, that's what he says, of the lawyer. I'd like to get your first thoughts on what you made of the protest, because some people say, look, this is perfectly within their rights. I mean, they can protest for this, and they say that, look, he's been in detention for 7 years, which is a time too long or time enough for the federal government to have concluded its prosecution of Nnamdi Kanu. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are everybody has a role to play. But as you will find out in Nigeria, part of the tragedy of leadership, of governance in Nigeria is that people leave their job and do other people's job. Let me start with Mr. Nanuga. He speaks for the president. So it is not presidential to criticize private citizens. Because you speak for the president, you should speak for solution. Because the president is to provide solution, not to be an antagonist of individuals. So maybe if somebody who speaks for the Attorney General, who is the prosecutor of Kanu, criticizes the other person, that's okay. But I think that for the dignity of the office of the president, Mr. Nanuga is highly active, but I think he should. If he works for me, I will have given a different instruction. Do not abuse people, do not interject in every situation. Even if you have an opinion, you can pass it to the appropriate level. It is unpresidential to be criticizing private citizens just because they are protesting. Now, then it is...
But do you think he raises a point, though?
No. He can't raise the point if he has no propriety to raise the point. But the issue is this. The legal profession has its own role to play in prosecution. The political leadership have a role to play to avoid a situation where a political disagreement or some agitation becomes subject of court processes. You have political solutions to them. Mr. Lawyer's job is to defend his client in court. So if he went out to protest, he's not protesting as a lawyer, because he's running a risk that if he goes to court and he appears to be trying to use the public to overawe the court, the court might even cite him for contempt. And from what I know about the state of proceeding, the duty now he has is to defend, because it looks like the prosecution have closed their case, and it is now for the defense to open. So if the trial is still prolonging, the trial is prolonging because the defense is being given opportunity to give effective defense to their client. So for the lawyer's point of view, as a lawyer, I would say that probably the lawyer, that's one protest he ought to skip, because you are also involved in the defense of the person in court. So you cannot be in court and be on the street at the same time. In our profession, that is not allowed. But that is for the Attorney General or somebody in the Justice Department or Justice Ministry to raise that issue. It is not a presidential level issue. But generally, for other persons, they have a right as citizens to protest any issue, because that is their role as citizens. They don't have any other role to play. They cannot prosecute, they cannot defend. If they have an opinion regarding Nnamdi Kanu's situation, The only thing they can do is to express it publicly. And the job of the police is to keep law and order, not to criticize the content of the protest, but to see that the protest is done lawfully. And if there's a court of law that has given an order that the protest should not take place, you know how to enforce court judgments. So overall, in a situation like this, don't expect common citizens to come and resolve Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Because the only way they can participate is just to express their opinion. They have limited information regarding the matter, but there is the sentiment that the trial has been too long. They may not know what is the cause of the delay. And our constitutional requirement is that justice delayed is justice denied. So it is up to the court to say, in a criminal trial, I give you defense 3 months to close your case. I give you prosecution 2 months to close your case. So everybody has a role to play. So you cannot say the trial has been on for 7 years. The judiciary has a role to play to say, we are serving the public. We don't want to look like there's no justice in Nigeria. So if you come to my court, I give you 3 months. If you don't, I close you. And that is how it should be. But the people in the public are not going to be presidents. They're not going to be judges. They're not going to be attorney general. They are going to be common citizens. And they have a feeling that this man, maybe some of the things he's saying, I agree with him. Why are you prosecuting him? And they will protest. Your job is to manage the protest, to see that it's lawful, and then take a lesson from that protest to say, okay, the public is getting heavily invested in this matter. If we still want to prosecute, then we need to make it clear and make the prosecution more transparent. If we think that there's a political solution, which during my presidential campaign at that time, I gave clear political solution to the problem, and that political solution will solve most of the problems. And if there are crimes committed, then you need to identify the crimes committed by that person. So
you believe that a political solution should be applied in Nnamdi Kanu?
As president, I'm not a prosecutor. The way the law is written in Nigeria, President Tinubu cannot say this person is guilty of a crime, it should be taken to court. It's a civil, it's not in charge of law enforcement. That it is the job of the Attorney General, with the Director of Public Prosecution, with the police. A political leader does not criminalize his citizens. So if you charge someone to court for a crime, and the Attorney General faces a crime, if the President sees the situation that it has some political content in it, it doesn't stop the political leadership from finding political solutions. At the end of the day, where the political solution has been found and the criminal offense is still pending, there are ways. That's why in the end the President is given power for clemency. And so because they see that in some situation, yes, law enforcers will see that you have committed an offense, but it will turn out that there's an overarching political or social environment that warrants that the best way to resolve that problem may not be through prosecution alone, because you can put the person in prison and the subject matter still continues. My own reading is that, first, if Nnamdi Kanu wants a political solution, he needs to renounce some of those things that are considered to be divisive and problematic for the country. It's both ways when you're looking for a political solution. There are enough leaders at national and regional and state level that could do all that engagement. But you cannot continue to, I'm not saying it's equal to that, but let me give an example of similar things done in the country. You will see there was a time they had Igboho. He was said to have committed some offenses, and they bombarded his house, tried to capture him. He ran out. Somehow it's been resolved. Igboho is a Nigerian now, moving freely like any other Nigerian. I think that a similar thing can be done. And what I suspect is that Nnamdi Kanu has a role to play in it as well. Because if you want a political solution, you need to renounce some of those things that are not consistent with good order law enforcement in the country. And you will see that even Mandela, they started with, we will kill the white people, we'll deal with them. But when they were working towards solution, they started talking about, we're all South Africans, for it to be more inclusive. So everywhere where a political agitation has come up with political solution is that people start to mellow in their approach to it. But the government of the day will not surrender to an individual. So everybody who is helping Nnamdi Kanu and those who are involved should also talk to them so that the idea that we are one country, you have a right to express your opinion. In the course of doing that, you may get carried away and you may fall into some crime if you're not careful. But when we are finding political solution, that's not the time to criminalize. So that is my own approach in leadership to it.
You said something very important, talking about clemency and the powers of the president, which has come under scrutiny in recent times. A number of articles have been written, and their titles have been quite interesting. But you said that a political leader does not criminalize his citizens. What do you make of the president's latest list of pardons, which has caused an uproar? Do you think that people were right to have raised the objections that they have raised, or do you think that this is well within the powers of the president, who should not see or should not criminalize his citizens? What were your thoughts on the latest list of pardons granted by President Tinubu?
The president obviously has a constitutional prerogative to show mercy and to show clemency and to issue pardons and commutations. It's just that for some reason the president is not competent in the discharge of his duties. And the incompetence of the president is caused by the incompetence of the presidency and the Attorney General. Because typically the president, as head of state, because the head of state function to show mercy, they would give his subordinates guidelines, like, I want these categories. And then these people will be trustworthy enough to know that justice is a very careful scale. So if there are 3 people arrested for a similar offense, on what basis will I release 1 and keep 2? Or will I release 2 and keep 1? So it's a very sacred thing, because you are now showing the public where the value of the president is with regards to justice. Now, you have to govern your processes. But whether you are looking for a list of people to give palliative to, number of families to give welfare to, appointment of people, conferment of national honor, anything that has to do with the use of discretion, the people in government abuse it. And because the president is incompetent in many simple ways, he would append his hand and think later. So, because of that incompetence, and when you say, look, oh, why are you being released? No, so there are competencies in even the way a president walks, the way he speaks, including, for example, the way by Onanuga who say, I speak for the president. Anybody who uses the name of the president to talk has to be presidential. I saw my learned friend, Voila, struggling profusely to explain the meaning of so-called genocide. Because he's talking like he's just had a drink at a bar. He's forgotten that I'm speaking for the president. There's nobody who is higher than President Tinubu in this country. As I'm talking to you now, President Tinubu walks into this studio, I will be on my feet, because that's the symbol of the nation. So it means that anything he touches has to have excellence in it. But as I will call him, His Excellency. But gross incompetence in every single step, something as simple as prerogative of mercy, that when you issue it, the public will say, yes, this leader is champion of justice. He knows what he's doing. And he uses this to cure the problem. And you have deep consultation with the victims of that crime. You get a lot of resolution. So the person you want to give clemency to has to have a feature in their situation that's unfortunate. That, well, it's true they committed the offense, but there's a particular feature in their life, whether they were victim of abuse before, whether they had incompetence in legal representation, whether subsequent to their sentencing, they've shown remarkable talent that shows that they are more useful to the country, outside and inside, and then that the victims understand. So the president is to summarize the clemency that he has already achieved through those who are the victims of that. And then, in the end, when observations are made, it's not then you discover, oh, I didn't know this person was on the list. Oh, I didn't know that person was on the list. They are, it looks to me that people are trading every presidential favor, including trading the clemency. That many who don't deserve to be there will get smuggled in there. And it happens in incompetent presidencies all the time, where the president signs a paper and then people adding more and adding more and adding more.
Wanted to confirm, though, do you think it's still appropriate then for the Attorney General's office? They issued a statement saying that it's not the final phase yet. There's still the phase of review before they transmit to the correctional center. Is that still within the ambit of law?
Yes, because the president is, unless he's gazetted, you don't know. This is information being given. So, and the list appears to be inaccessible because you can, it's just like national honor, anything they do. They will say 500, 200 people, and then next day is 270. They keep adding to it. So the important thing is that unless the warrant has been released to say a person should be released, you cannot withdraw the warrant because that's double jeopardy. That's not fair. But if a person is there improperly, they will do their internal investigation. Because now it's clear that the president Tinubu knows that his presidency is incompetent on this subject, and we shouldn't shame them, because at least now they're trying to correct it. Because it's one thing to make an error, and when they're trying to correct the error, you now start laughing at them, ridiculing them. Next error, they will say there's no error. So it's good to encourage them that those who don't deserve to be there, anybody who abuses the process will either quietly or publicly be sanctioned, and the president should learn a lesson that there is no presidential duty that is frivolous. If anything requires the signature of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's a serious matter. Otherwise, it won't reach your level. Because you realize that the Chief Judge of a state, the Attorney General of a state, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Attorney General of the Federation, they have powers to go to prisons and release people. Attorney General has power to withdraw charges. So for them to leave clemency for the President, it is to be done at the highest level of excellence. Okay. The president needs to know that. Let's
take this conversation to Lagos. I know my colleague Ayos.
Thank you, Mokwe.
Some questions as well. Ayos.
Yeah, thank you, Mokwe. My question is actually moving away from that conversation. I saw a report recently that spoke to the fact that some members of the fact is a resolution of the House of Representatives that the federal government, particularly the CBN and the Ministry of Finance, should provide details of the federal government's financial support to states. Now, it raised a question on my mind because, on the one hand, the reps are from states, and I don't think there is anything that happened in any state that the members of the House of Representatives are not aware of. On the other hand, is the responsibility, is the fact that the states now get a lot more money from the federal revenue allocation, beg your pardon, from the federal allocation more now than ever before. In fact, someone put the figure at more than 3 times what they used to get before now. So, do you see a problem here where the House of Representatives, who represent their states, are asking the CBN and the Ministry of Finance to provide details that I think they should be able to get from their states, while the states are earning a lot more money now? What do they need interventions for? What are your thoughts on these?
Okay, yes. Remember, there is only one Nigeria, and we only have one set of cities and Nigerians. But there are levels of government, and everybody has their duty. So if a father and a son are both lawmakers, the father is in the House of Representatives, the son is in the House of Assembly. So they are from the same family, same town, but they have different duties. So how a state manages its money, what you receive, is for the House of Assembly. So it is the House of Assembly members who can question the governor of the state on how he spends his money. The duty of the National Assembly is to look at overall finance in the country. And if they want to look at the subset of how much the central bank is sending to the state, they are not supervising the states. They are supervising the central bank to say, give us figures, because they must have medium-term expenditure framework, they must have plan on inflation, they must have plan on general management of financial regulations. So I think the intervention of the House of Representatives is at the federal involvement in the disbursement. But how the states will use the money, that's over the House of Assembly of the state, because the governor of a state can't spend a cent or a kobo of state money constitutionally without appropriation in the House of Assembly. If people forget about how that system works, they will remember the argument in Governor Fubara's budget in Rivers State. I think people pay attention to that, where the question of who will approve the budget, is it this faction or that faction? It shows to you that even when they went to Supreme Court, at the end of the day, the governor is asked to go back to the House of Assembly and represent the budget. So it shows to you that there are clear levels of responsibility. I think it is not the duty of a federal lawmaker to account for the activity of a state government. It can only intervene by having information. So the same constituents, they may not get proper information from the state government. Maybe the House of Assembly is not up to task. Maybe the commissioner of finance or budget.
It's interesting that you put it that way.
And maybe the state governor is denying that.
If you can hear me,
but from the federal level,
second, if you can hear me,
this is the information available.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because it is the same National Assembly that from time to time will say they're asking for constituency projects for the same states that they cannot. Anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. Now,
Yes.
Another angle to that is whether or not you think the state governments are justifying the increased allocation that goes to them. And the issue Markwe talked about earlier, and I think you also mentioned it, about how we activate the local government administrations or the local government councils in a way that they are more proactive, and we can allay some of the challenges. We can cut down on some of the inefficiencies at that level of government. How do we go about it? Especially now, they have a lot more resources in the states.
If there was a medicine to cure bad governance in Nigeria, I would recommend to the public health officers to first go and treat the governors first, because they are the major problems of bad governance. If you look at the Constitution, as bad as the federal government has been, as badly as has been run, as in my own humble opinion, respectfully, as incompetent as the Tinubu administration has been, they are still far better. The federal government, Tinubu presidency is better than most of the state governments. The governors, many of them don't stay in their states. They have no coherent plan for administration. And not only are they ruining their own developmental chances, they are inhibiting those of the local governments. So if you want to get most of the things that irritate Nigerians, that get Nigerians annoyed about government, they are things within the jurisdiction of the state government. So the state governments have not been accounting well. But if you are going to talk about the state government, you talk about the houses of assembly. They have been virtually absent, and they have been suborned, essentially. So they've abandoned their responsibility. And if they do abandon it, I think we need to talk to the people in the states to say, what are you telling your representative? What are you telling them? Because they are mostly like lapdogs of the governors. If you say that the National Assembly, the President National Assembly is too compliant, too soft on the presidency, in fact, they are 10 times more aggressive than the state. In some cases, I'm not exaggerating, there are governors who just put a set of chairs inside their own office and ask the assembly members to come approve this for me and get out of here. So this is where the failure lies. So if we get state governments right, we will get a lot of things right. But unfortunately, we haven't. So we need to work on that. There's no excuse at all. There's no transparency. Or many of them, they are confused. Many of them are even absentee governors. They don't stay. I know a few governors that I thought should have a few talents given to them by God, rather than following the president to the airport and waving at him and be at every ceremony. So, though they attend people's children's birthday, they go everywhere. They follow traditional rulers to carry umbrellas. They go everywhere. So, they are, other than just sit down and be governors in their state. Okay. So, we need to address that state by state. And this club called Governors Forum is, if you are irritated by Nupeng, and they are worse than that. They are just there to gang up and to defend illegalities and unconstitutionality. So you see how much effort they are making to truncate the local governments under them, how they are misappropriating the money of local governments under them, and so many other things like that. So we need to be serious as a people. As we are talking about the presidency or the federal government, we need to talk more about the state, and that is a very important component.
Okay, if you can hear me, there's this news making the rounds of some coup scare in the country. I'm sure you have heard divergent perspectives on that. What are your thoughts on that? What could have given birth to all of that?
Well, it is first, poor communication in government. 2, lack of credibility by government people, because the Directorate of the Defense Headquarters, the Directorate of other directorates of communication in the military have said there is no such thing. But you see that the Attorney General, who is supposed, if there was a coup, he would be the one to prosecute it, hasn't spoken. Maybe he's taking his time to get more information about it. But in a matter of that nature, if the government that is supposed to be the victim or intended victim of the coup is working normally and say there's no coup, I agree there's no coup, because governments don't joke with such a thing. But there will be leakages of information from that time, and the press is free to report. But I would believe that when it comes to the issue of whether there's a coup or not, if the government of the day say there's no coup, I can't cry more than the bereaved. I was okay, there's no coup. But what I know is that there should be no coup. Under no circumstance should there be any coup. And we Nigerians will not accept any coup. We have come a long way from days of coup. We can't do that. So whatever problem you have with the government of the day, let us go and do it in the ballot box. If they are making the ballot box more difficult, we give more civil resistance to it. But there should be no coup, because there is nothing good that will come out of military rule. I was born under military rule. I've seen it. There's nothing new. I think the best thing to do is to let the civilian system work. I know we are not moving as fast towards democracy as we should. We know that the government is poorly performing, but I can tell you the military will be worse. Not because the people are bad, because the system is bad. And there's nothing that will come out of it. It will lead to many of the crises you see in the country today that we can't resolve. All these problems arose from many years of military rule in which force was used to put certain status quo in place. And people are not happy with this status quo. And the civilian system is slower. A civilian system like an eraser being used to erase something done with the military indelible ink.
Okay. So
that is what we are trying to deal with. So we should not go back there at all.
I don't know whether you want to give your quick closing words on the issue of the appointment of the new INEC chairman. He's now been confirmed by the National Assembly, particularly the Senate. I do not know if you'd like to set a quick agenda for him, if you can, in about a minute.
Well, I would say that the whole process of the appointment shows that we are not serious with electoral reform, because it's too quick. For something as heavy as that, and given all the noise about elections not being perfect, not being done properly, we need to make amendments, you would think that in the National Assembly, they will take time. The clearing of the interaction with such a person should have lasted days upon days to allow everyone to give suggestions to the person to see whether it will falter, or some examination. But it's an unknown quantity to most Nigerians. I know him personally as a lawyer, and there is nothing positive or negative about him. He's just a bland character. So it's up to him what he wants to do. There is no history of managing something similar to that. You can say, well, let me judge by his history.
What would you have him do, though?
It's just to follow the Constitution, follow the Electoral Act, and make sure that it does not compromise. And that's what my mother told me in life when I was growing up. That's what my grandmother told me. That's what my parents told me. Not other than that, if you are a decent person and you take a job like that, especially if the person who gave you the job is also a decent person, and he says, I give you this job, do it according to your conscience, do it according to the law, don't favor me, don't favor anyone. I don't know what transpired between the appointer and the appointee, so I'm not privy to that. But I would presume that a president who has taken an oath of office to defend the Constitution would not violate that oath by appointing somebody and saying, do me personal favors. But all of this is speculative because the processes are allowed to cross-check these things. So in the Council of State, there is no, it was a given. Nobody did anything there. In the National Assembly, we should be doing something. They should ask everybody who knows anything about the person to come. They just announce, okay, we are doing clearing of the guy tomorrow, and then bow and get out of here. So I think it's not a sign of seriousness. So Professor Amukpiton can turn out to be fantastic, can turn out to be disastrous. So we don't know.
We'll wait and see. We have to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Prince Adewale Adebayo is a former presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, the SDP. Thank you once more for coming.
Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.